So this happened a few years ago when I was about 23 or so. A small group of my friends were all interested in the paranormal, and they often went ghost hunting. And more often than not, they came back with nothing. I, on the other hand, didn't really believe in the paranormal, or I thought there was a scientific reason behind all of it. So, one day after we were chilling at a local arcade, my friends wanted to go ghost hunting again. Normally I would have passed and went home to play some video games, but a girl who I had a huge crush on at the time, let's call her A, said she was down and that she bought a thermal camera for it. So, wanting to be around her more, we set off for the night hunt. We drove for about 15 minutes till we reached our destination. We parked in a Subway parking lot. There were about 6 to 8 of us. There was myself, A, her best friend at the time, C, and the rest I didn't know that well. After we parked, it took us about 5 minutes to reach the local church. We had to cut through their parking lot to reach a little wooden gate. From there, it took us to a neighborhood and we had to sneak around and avoid cars, since it was about 2:45 a.m., and a group of teenagers wearing mostly black wouldn't look too good. Anyways, it took us about 10 minutes to reach the woods where our ghost hunt location was at. So we got ready. And by getting ready, I mean I was checking my Facebook to see if any of my other friends were online. Then we started walking. It wasn't too deep in the woods. I could still see homes and such. We were walking on a dirt path, and all I could think about was how much I hate mosquitoes. The walk was boring, to be honest. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. Everyone else was freaking out and saying that they saw this and they saw that. Once we made it through the woods, we came across a baseball park on the other side of the neighborhood. We sat down and chatted for a bit, trying to decide what to do next. Could either go around the woods to get back to our cars, or walk back through the path again, which was the shorter way. We decided to walk back down the path. On our way back, I was near the front, and I made a decision that might have caused what happened next. Somewhere near the middle of the trail, I started to welcome the paranormal and push it to do something, anything. In my head, I was saying things like, "Go on, do something to me. Show me you're here. Use my body, anything." I suddenly started to feel numb and lightheaded. I remember starting to get tunnel vision, like I could see the edge of my vision fading into darkness. Then suddenly, I woke up on top of a guy. He was holding my face in his hands and he's whispering or saying something in a different language to me. Everyone was staring at me and asking if I was okay. I asked them what happened. They said I stopped a few times, that I wouldn't respond when they were asking me questions. They also said I would laugh, but I didn't believe them because I tend to be on the quiet side. After that, everyone was saying that we should just call it a night, but they wouldn't want me to drive. The next morning when I woke up, I had some scratches on my arm, but I chalked it up to the tree branches. A's friend C messaged me on Facebook asking if I was okay, and I told her I was. I asked what happened and she told me about it. I asked her who was there and she mentioned a few names, but the only name I could remember was Tim, or Timothy. She said there wasn't anyone there with that name. Half an hour later, she messaged me back with a website link. When I clicked on it, it opened up a missing child's page for a kid named Timothy. He was 8 years old, and he went missing a year or two before we went to the woods. Lately, I've had the urge to go back to those woods. Had I not experienced this firsthand, I would have totally not believed it. As it is, I have no explanation for it. 3 years ago, around this time actually, I was sharing a studio apartment with a friend. I was tidying up some of my things, and she was sitting on her bed. We were just talking while I cleaned. Suddenly, out of nowhere, I'm flung several feet in the air, horizontally. Absolutely out of nowhere. I landed on my elbow and I busted up pretty bad. My roommate started flipping out. She took me to the hospital and everything. Then later that night, we were sitting in our apartment talking about what happened when this black line starts being drawn on the wall right before our eyes. We had never had anything odd happen in the apartment before, then, or after. That was it. Absolutely insane. Before this, I didn't really believe all that much in the paranormal. I thought it was interesting, and if it were real, I firmly believed ghosts could not touch you. Now, I don't know what to think. So this is a true story. It actually happened to my mom. Now, it may seem unbelievable, but it really did happen. My mom had a loving relationship with her grandma. She loved to visit her as a child until her unfortunate passing. However, strange things happened to her when she used to visit her house. In one instance, they were gardening together when footprints appeared in the freshly tilled soil. Another time, the toaster was painted, so she and her grandma had to chisel it all off. Other times, the cat would stare off into seemingly nowhere and follow something, and then suddenly leave. Another time, there was vacuuming in the neighbor's house while the neighbors were gone. When they went to investigate, nothing was there. And once, there was a knife stuck into the side of the doorway. Now all of this seems really strange to me, and I half believed it. Until now. My mom's aunt moved into this house after my mom's grandma had passed. Then my aunt passed away recently, unfortunately. So my mom helped her uncle sell this stuff by holding a garage sale. During the sale, my mom suddenly saw this white rocking chair. There was a small boy, around 10 years old, rocking in the chair very hard. So my mom walked by and said something like, "Having fun in that rocking chair?" To which he looked at her very angrily and then replied, "It's haunted." My mom laughed and said, "Really? How do you know?" Little boy said, "It's haunted. I can feel it." He then walked off, and later my mom couldn't find him. It was as if he disappeared. She asked one of the other people helping if they saw the boy, and they said no. That was reasonable. There were a lot of people there. My mom then asked where the white rocking chair was from, and they replied, "What chair?" I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm 24 years old, and when I was in first grade, I saw a spirit. At the time, my family and I lived in some apartments in Forest Park, Georgia. These apartments had very nice red carpet in the living rooms. They've been abandoned for a while now, but I often drive by there just to see if I still feel the same terrifying feeling I felt when that night happened. My family consisted of me, my older brother, 2 younger sisters, my mom, and her boyfriend at the time. One night I woke up around 2:30 in the morning because I got thirsty and had to pee. Counterproductive, right? As I stepped into the hallway, I saw who I thought to be my mom's boyfriend sitting on the sofa watching TV. I approached him to ask what he was watching and got no response. So I got closer, said it again, but with a little more authority in my voice, because in my mind, it's very rude to ignore someone talking to you. When I was standing about 2 feet away, I felt off. I noticed that I still couldn't see his face or body, even though the TV was on. I could only see a shadowy silhouette. I froze because the air now felt heavy. The shadow turned towards me. It let out a terrifying scream and flew down the hall towards the hall closet by my mom's room. I stood there in shock for about 20 seconds before I started crying and screaming. I woke the entire apartment. My mom asked what happened, and I told her. The look in her face wasn't of surprise, but a look that said, "So, you've seen it too." She told me and my siblings that she felt a man standing over her bed at night, breathing on her. The boyfriend said on one of his off days, he'd be shaving, and in the mirror he could see someone, a shadow, standing in the shower behind him. The next morning, we went to the renter's office, and my mom had me tell the guy what I saw. My mom got pretty hot, telling the guy, "Hey, I told you that apartment was weird." The guy then told my mom that 6 months before we moved in, the previous guy living there was killed during a home invasion. The murderer stuffed his body into that hall closet, and he wasn't found until 2 weeks later. We moved into another apartment when I was in 3rd grade. My family and I stayed on the bottom floor. My older brother and I shared a room. My bed was next to the window. I never opened the window because I was afraid of seeing people walk by at night. One night, however, I opened the window because I was hot. I thought I saw a lady in a white dress standing outside. But I just wrote it off as me seeing stuff and being paranoid and just being tired. Sometime later, I spent the night at my cousin's apartment. He happened to live in the same apartment building, but he was on the 3rd floor. It was a big sleepover with all my guy cousins, so we did what normal 8 to 11-year-olds did and played video games and other dumb stuff. Once everybody went to bed, that's when it happened. I slept by the window and I opened it because I was on the 3rd floor and there was no balcony. But I saw that same lady in a white dress. Outside. This time, she was trying to get me to come out the window. She kept motioning for me to come. If I had gone, I would have probably died or been severely injured. She kept trying, slowly becoming angry. Her voice sounded like an adult man, but 10 times deeper. I tried to close my eyes and pretend like it wasn't happening, but it didn't work. I could feel her get closer. I rolled over top my cousin to get to the other side of the bed. I had to get away from the window. The whole time I kept my eyes closed. Eventually I stopped hearing the voice and went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, I had 4 to 5 scratch marks going down the length of my leg. As a kid, I used to live in an old home in the suburbs of Perth, Western Australia. The home was built in 1939, and I believe it was war housing for vets after the Second World War. My parents bought the house in 2000. The original home was at the front of the house, which had small creaky wooden floorboards and high ceilings. It only had about 3 rooms. my room, my sister's room, and a playroom, and this part of the house was where a lot of the activity was centered. A hallway connected the old house to what was originally the backyard, but had been renovated to add a large modern wing onto the existing structure. My parents' room was in this wing. I lived there until I was about 12 years old, and my experience begins at around age 5 or 6. I started to hate sleeping in my room, and being in that part of the house in general. Every time I was there, I felt uneasy, even during broad daylight, and I had no idea why. Activity was usually focused in the toy room, the biggest room in that part of the house. Small things like toys moving, going missing, and turning on in the middle of the night when they were switched off hours prior. The first experience I had was when I was around 5. I had a vivid night terror of a dirt-covered black glove reaching out from under my pillow and attempting to grab me. When I told my parents, they seemed unbothered, although now I know this wasn't the case. This comes into play later. When I was around 7, I remember a Barbie keyboard my sister had. It turned on and played some sort of tune late at night. My sister woke me up as any kid would, and we both went and woke up our parents. When they heard what was happening, they were visibly on edge. This was not the first experience they had in that room. After some apprehension, my dad went in and turned the keyboard off. When he did that, the ceiling light wouldn't turn on. However, it worked in the morning. Another occasion involving toys happened in my room. I was around 8 years old. I had a 2008 Mummy's Gold Matchbox toy set. If anyone is unfamiliar with it, it's a battery-powered track which, once a Matchbox car runs over a button, or if the button is pushed, it activates a mummy's eyes to glow and a voice saying, "I've got you now." I was having trouble sleeping one night. I was wide awake, so I know this wasn't some hallucination. From the dead silence of night, I heard, "I've got you now." I jolted to look at the track. Its arms were moving up and down repeatedly. This was not a function the toy had. Its arms were only meant to move up and down once. After a few seconds, it stopped. I had been playing with it earlier, and I distinctly remember switching it off. I didn't sleep well that night, if I did at all. I started sleeping on the couch in the living room after this. I can recall multiple occasions in which a clock would fall off the wall, no matter where it was placed or what we used to hang it up. It fell off every time. The activity was fairly quiet for the remaining years we lived there. Basic spirit stuff like bangs, scratching noises, a cold breeze when there were no windows or doors open, dogs barking at doorways and corners when there's nothing there. We finally moved out in 2013. It was only years later when my parents told me about their experiences. They're now divorced, and they rarely agree on anything, except what happened in that house. They told me the toy room used to be my sister's room when she was a baby. Baby monitors recording sounds of a lullaby player, which had no batteries in it. Or it'd be put away in a closet, only to mysteriously reattach to the crib again. But by far the most disturbing account is that of a dark figure. Both my parents woke up in the dead of night, only to see a tall, dark figure, around 6 feet tall, wearing a trench coat, standing over them. The figure disappeared after a blink. My parents only saw him once. Just talking about it still makes them feel uneasy. The part that terrifies me is their account of the gloves. The figure over them wore the same gloves, the same black, dirty gloves that I had seen in my night terror as a child.